I want to take you back to Friday afternoon. School letting out, that bell ringing, the feeling when the sun hit you when you walked out the door. Not just a relief, not just an absence of school or an absence of work, but something else, something that had a weight to it that Monday through Thursday never had. It was Friday, and Friday night was coming. Friday actually used to mean something. It meant pizza. It meant the video rental store. It meant staying up way past midnight and watching Elvira or Joe Bob Briggs and waiting on your song to come on the radio so you could hit play and record at the same time and get it on your own tape. It meant Friday night lights if you played football, and it meant the whole town showing up because that's what whole small towns did in Friday nights in the fall. It meant being on your great-grandmother's front porch in Georgia with a 5-gallon bucket, shelling and snapping beans with music playing in the background on a hot Georgia night because it was Friday and there was no reason to be in a hurry because Friday had its own clock. It meant being a broke 21-year-old newlywed deciding whether or not you were going to spend your money on renting a movie and getting some takeout or splurging and going to the theater and eating whatever was in the cabinets at home because you couldn't afford to do both. And that choice, somehow, that constraint made it seem more important than any unlimited streaming library ever has or ever will. Friday night was a complete world, and somewhere along the way, not all at once, but gradually and then suddenly, it stopped being that. But tonight, I want to take you back. I want to tell you what Friday night used to mean and what we lost when it became just another night. So for a while, let's pop that tape in and go back. I got you. Let's go do this. All right, so before I tell you what we lost, I want to tell you what Friday night was, because I don't think we ever really fully named it. We never put a fine point on what Friday night is or was. We've talked about the video store. I've talked about that a lot here. We talk about pizza. I talk about that a lot too. We talk about movies and TV, but we don't talk about the feeling that held all of it in place. Friday was the night of the week that had its own identity, its own sort of like emotional vibes and texture to it, its own premise built into the name itself. Monday through Thursday were the work week. They were the work week, the school week. They had their own rhythms, but they belonged to school. They belonged to work. They belonged to the daily grind. They were the price you paid. Friday was the payoff. Everybody's working for the weekend. There was a song about that very thing. And the genius of Friday night is that it is completely, or was completely, universal. The kid in Georgia or the kid in California, like I said before, it doesn't matter if you were in New York, the Midwest, it all had the same feeling in that same moment. When the bell rang and the door opened, the exhale, the getting ready, the releasing of the grip of the week. The content of a Friday night was different for everyone. What you did might have been slightly different, but that feeling that we all shared, that was completely the same. It wasn't just the video store. It wasn't the pizza. It wasn't the movies. It was that feeling before the algorithm took it all away from us. Friday was a destination, a feeling, rather than just a date on a calendar. Now for us here, our Friday night started with a decision, and it was a decision about pizza. And oftentimes, that came down to Domino's or Pizza Hut. But here in Georgia, we had a regional place called Ken's Pizza, and that one got factored in the equation every now and then too. Ken's Pizza was kind of an institution. It had a brick house style oven and things like that. It had it here in Stone Mountain, Georgia, not far from my house, and some other locations. But Pizza Hut had that classic red roof that we always knew, the stained glass lamps and stuff. I've talked about it before, that feeling of coming home under that red roof. And then there was Domino's, and Domino's 30-minute guarantee. Avoid the noise, the pizza delivered right to your door. You could order it, run and grab your movie, and get back, and that pizza was waiting on you all together. The video store was everything. We had mom and pop stores first. We always think about Blockbuster, and that's the eye catcher, but I think more about the ones with the handwritten labels, the weird different ways that you would check out a tape. The VHS cases were actually held behind the counter a lot of the times, and you just had the outside shells that you could look through, but you had that guy behind the counter, the weird beard dude, who could really tell you pretty much anything about any movie in that store. And then Blockbuster arrived and things got bigger and more organized and slightly less personal, even as maybe the selection got better or bigger in any case. But the ritual was the same, regardless of which store that it was. You could walk in on a Friday night and the store was full of people making the same decisions that you were making. The release wall, particularly with all those new ones over there, was the first stop. Everybody ran over to the new releases to see whatever had just came out and see if it was actually still in stock, because that was what was in theaters most recently. And if it had that sticker and it had the new release or was on that new release wall, it was going to cost you an extra $1 or $2 if it was there. And then the negotiation began after that, because the Friday night family negotiation, a lot of times with which movies we were going to rent, particularly if it was your siblings or your dad, somebody wanted horror, somebody wanted action, somebody wanted the Goonies for 100th time. Yeah, that was me a lot of the time back in the day. Someone always wanted, to be the contrarian, and you had to negotiate and settle your way through it. And now we're not even talking about which one you were going to watch first after that. But then you brought the films home from the store in your hands. And that's a big difference, because something felt different about that. When you had to physically go to the store, discuss it, invest in the rental, carry it home, a physical object in your hands, because that cover art had sold you. You had fought for your rental, for your choice, and you wanted to watch it, and you were committed to it at that time. No changing it 5 minutes in if you don't like the way this is going and stream over to something else, because the rental fee was paid. You were in 100% and you were going to watch it because you had that little few day window and you had to bring it back, and you were never going to get to rent it again if you didn't watch it. So you were going to check it out. And that commitment to it, the investment, the fact that you had chosen it, made it mean so much more. And then there was like the more of the teenager, the older teenager version of a Friday night, of staying up all night. Because the older you got, really the night got longer for you on Friday night, because Friday night, nobody was sending you to bed for the most part. Friday night as a teenager meant hanging out with your friends, sleepovers, maybe still renting movies and getting pizza, but you're staying up till 2 or 3 in the morning doing absolutely nothing important, really just playing video games. That's what we did a lot. My buddy Lee and I, we'd stay up playing video games, listening to the radio. And before that, when I was even younger, I'd stay up with my brother and my uncle, and we'd be playing Atari, like Pitfall and Frogger and, of course, Pac-Man, Lost Luggage, all this stuff on Atari. And then Nintendo arrived and everything changed, because now you had Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers and Tecmo Bowl and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. And then when Super Nintendo dropped, it was all about Mario Kart, and that would destroy friendships and brotherhood real quick, playing some Mario Kart in the most enjoyable way possible. And that was the point. It really wasn't the technology, it was the ritual, the being together, the experiencing these things and hanging out. And then the one thing I remember, and if you grew up, if you're Generation X, if you're older millennial particularly, or before that, you're going to remember waiting on your song to come on the radio. You're trying to make a mixtape, you're waiting all night on your song to come on. You got to run over there and hit play and record at the same time, so you can record it off the radio. You could do something else cool back in the day sometimes. You could call into a radio station and request a song. Well, Friday night was a good time to do that if you could get through, because guess what? Everybody else was trying to do that too. So this is a thing that streaming sort of made completely incomprehensible to anyone who grew up after it. You would hear a song during the week, you loved that song, and you would spend part of your Friday waiting to hear it and play it again so that you could maybe capture it. You couldn't click on it. You had to wait for the station to play it. And then finally, when it came on at like 11:47 p.m., you had to be ready. That is so different now, and it made the experience, the anticipation made it so much bigger than it was. The waiting was the point. The anticipation was a huge part of the experience. That moment the song came on that you've been waiting on all week, all night to jam with your friends or listen to on your own, that you couldn't get on demand replay, that was like gold. And then once that was done, later on, when I was a kid too, but later on came the late night horror host for us. My dad, my brother, and I, we were really into this, and my uncle Harold as well. We would set up and watch Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and you would watch these crazy B horror films, and the ones that I grew up loving. And then later on, you would get Joe Bob Briggs and Monster Vision, and that experience, having that host as a late night companion, it felt like you were up, you were part of everything. It brought these movies to life. You could feel the experience. You could feel the electricity in a way that you don't get sitting in the dark on the couch by yourself, scrolling through streaming option after streaming option. And the horror host as a Friday night companion is one of the things that we lost big time, and people under 30 or 35 don't even really know how that existed as an institution, at least not in the way it used to be so important. And then, listen, I'm from the South. I played football. I had to talk about Friday night lights. My son is a teenager playing football now, and it really hasn't changed. At least the importance of it hasn't changed. But growing up in the South, Friday night had a completely different meaning during the fall. Fall Friday nights were not just about a video rental store or pizza. A lot of times that had to get saved for Saturday, because Friday nights in the fall were about football games. The whole town came out around here. I played at South Gwinnett. We played Brookwood. They called it the Battle for Snellville, Georgia. And everyone in the general vicinity was there. Over 10,000 people spilling out of the stadium on a high school Friday night. The hot dogs, the popcorn smell, the electricity in the air when everybody's there, particularly when it got cool outside. Man, this is something that you just don't really understand, the intimacy and the electricity that can come from a Friday night lights in the fall in the South. And after the game, win or lose, everybody migrated somewhere, whether it was to go get the pizza and head home, the video store, but it was all about the football game for that night. It had its own vibe to it. It existed in small towns across this country, particularly in the South here, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Alabama. These places, Friday nights in October and November felt like nothing else in the world. And then there's my personal young, married, newlywed version of a Friday night, which became very different because I was only 21 years old. So I was still relatively a kid navigating a Friday night like this. And the financial reality of two people like starting a life with essentially nothing meant that Friday nights became like genuine decisions that you had to make. We could order out, get some takeout, and rent a movie. For us, it was often, there was a Hollywood Video over here, and next to it, there was a Fuddruckers, which is actually a hamburger place, or there was pizza. And that was basically our two choices. We could get one of those two things and rent a movie, or we could take all of our money and we could go and see a movie. Couldn't get a bunch of concessions, but we could go and see a movie, but we could not afford to do both. So Friday night meant making that decision, and deciding whether we were going out on a Friday night or whether we were staying in became part of a ritual. The conversation about what we wanted to do that week, because when Friday night is really the only night that you have where you can afford to do something, and you're going to spend everything you've invested that you can do that week. You experience Friday night differently. You appreciate it differently. The experience stays with you much more. You pay attention. You invest. You are present in a way that is very difficult to sustain today with cell phones, streaming, and all of that. I really didn't think about it then, but now I remember it so much. The films then stick with you way more, and I probably saw less of them then because I couldn't afford it, but I remember fewer of them now because they just don't have the same impact. And then for me personally as well, going back to being a kid, there was the farm. There was the farm on Friday nights. And some of my most lasting Friday night memories didn't involve a video store. They didn't involve pizza. They didn't even really involve football. They happened at my great-grandparents' farm in Georgia. Late night on the farm after a week's work was done, or a week of going to school, and the evening had cooled down, thankfully, because there was no air conditioning. My great-grandmother would bring out 5-gallon buckets. Some of these buckets would be completely full of beans, and the other buckets would be empty. And what that meant was you were going to sit there and either shell beans or snap beans from one bucket and fill the other bucket with it. And you had my great-grandmother, you had my grandmother, my great-grandfather in there. Maybe he was chopping wood, stacking wood, whatever he was doing, hanging out. Maybe he was just reading the Bible or a book sitting there. You were doing this. You could hear nothing outside except for the occasional car pass, the very occasional car pass off this screened-in front porch with a big magnolia tree out front. You're sweating. You're hoping it gets cooler as the night goes, and you're just listening to music. Maybe my Uncle Harold was playing music over in the corner. Maybe he was helping, and we just had the radio on, and we would just sit there and shell beans and talk and listen to music. The sound of the beans hitting in the bucket, everybody talking, nobody's mind being somewhere else. Your hands were busy. Your mind was on what you were doing. It was on being present, and absolutely no reason to hurry, because if you finished one bucket, you were just going to get another bucket. I was too young to understand that those Friday nights on that screened-in front porch were some of the most valuable hours of my entire life. You never know the value of an experience or a ritual while you're inside of it. You really only understand the value of it later, when the ritual is gone and the people who made it possible are gone with it. My great-grandmother is gone now. My great-grandfather is gone. My grandmother is gone. The farm is gone. The screen porch is quiet forever. But I can still feel those Friday nights, the beans in my hands, the hot Georgia nights, the all around us, the sound of the bugs out there, the music in the house, the laughter, the talking, the unhurried quality of time that didn't need to be optimized, justified, or anything else. That was Friday night too. Not just the video store version, not just the video game version, the pizza version, or the football version. It was the real life version on the farm, and it was maybe the most complete and real version of it all. So what happened? Friday night didn't just disappear suddenly. It dissolved gradually and then poof, disappeared the rest of the way all at once. Streaming removed many of our decisions for us. You no longer had to choose what you were going to do, what you were going to watch, because you could watch anything. You could be on the internet and do anything. The algorithm fed you anything that you wanted. The weight of the video store choice didn't exist anymore. Holding the VHS in your hand, selecting it by artwork, the hands-on commitment of Friday night, it became impossible to recreate when the choice was infinite and the commitments to those choices were zero. Delivery apps removed the ritual. You no longer had to go anywhere. All the pizza comes to you now. And if you even try to go out to eat, it's hard. You're just gonna have to get it to go. The experience of going in and sitting down at Pizza Hut or Ken's Pizza, very different now. It's even different ordering Domino's and seeing if you were going to beat the 30 minutes or less to get the $3 off, just like in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's very different. Friday night choice that you had then was very different. It became optional now. It really became unnecessary in the last few years. Social media has replaced the gathering, the sleepover, the games, the radio, the horror host at midnight in the same room with your friends and sleeping and hanging out. It has replaced the front porch. You could be virtually present with 100 people or 1,000 people simultaneously and be physically present and emotionally present with nobody. And the algorithm replaced the waiting. You no longer have to wait for your song. It's there whenever you want to. The pleasure of anticipation, the excitement of anticipation of waiting all Friday night for that song to come on that you've been thinking about since Tuesday and talking with your friends and singing at school, it became structurally impossible to recreate in a world where everything is immediately available at the touch of a button. Each of those changes was presented as progress, more convenience, more access, more choice. But each one of them dissolved one more piece of what made Friday night feel like the Friday nights that we remember. And the strange irony is that we have entertainment in the abundance that no generation has ever known before. We have access to all of this information and things we want to do in a way that no human living in history before now has ever had. But we have fewer special nights that make an imprint on us that we actually remember. To be honest, for decades, for a long time, Friday night was America's last remaining campfire. That's what it was. Millions of people doing different things for the exact same reason at the exact same time. The kid choosing a new release VHS from the new release wall, the family negotiating over pizza, the teenager waiting for a song on the radio or hanging out with his friends all night long, the whole town going to a football game, two broke newlyweds deciding between takeout and a movie theater, a grandmother and her family on a screen porch in Georgia with a 5-gallon bucket and music from inside the house, all of it happening simultaneously, all of it saying the same thing. It's Friday, and Friday means something. We didn't realize how rare that actually was until it disappeared. The truth is, what we lost isn't pizza. It isn't a video store, really. It isn't the horror host. What we lost was the ritual, the communal ritual and the feeling of Friday nights, the shared experience of a night that everyone entered simultaneously with the same feeling. That this night during the week is different from all the rest. We finished our work, we finished our school, and we have a whole weekend of fun ahead of us. And this is the night on the edge of it all. And that was the night that made the choices so much fun, so interesting, the anticipation, the electricity, it all mattered. That the people in this with you chose to be in it with you. The algorithm, it seems like it gave us everything, but it took away the things that made Friday feel like Friday. And I'm not saying that we can't rebuild a video rental store. We can. They're bringing back some Pizza Huts, right? Like 200 Pizza Hut classics. I'm not saying that we can't have horror hosts. Joe Bob Briggs is still around. We can have those things. We can actually choose to make Friday night feel special again if we try. Order pizza, go out and eat it instead of having it delivered. Pick up a movie, and watch it, or pick out a movie, buy a movie, or watch a movie on TV and stay with it with your whole family without checking your phone, without being distracted. Call your friends and be in the same room with them. Go to an actual movie theater with friends, sit in a dark with strangers and experience the same thing together. Not because nostalgia demands it, but because the human need for what Friday night used to give us is still there. The need for the ritual that marks the end of the week in the beginning and the anticipation of something fun and special. That never went away. It's still there. The algorithm didn't eliminate the need for that. It just stopped serving it to us. It made it easy to ignore it. But Friday night is still there. It is waiting. We just have to decide if it means something to us again. Pizza, video rental stores, video games, the new release wall, Mario Kart, Resident Evil, Tecmo Bowl, DJs playing your songs on the radio, shelling beans on a front porch, playing football on Friday nights, hearing your grandmother's voice tell you it's finally time to stop and come in. That's Friday night. All of it. Different Fridays, but still the same feeling. And none of those things are it specifically. It is all of them at once. And that's what's special. A complete world that existed once a week for years and then suddenly went away in the name of convenience. But it's still there to reach out and grab. So drop your Friday night memory in the comments. The pizza place, the video store, the game you played with your friends all night long, the songs you waited for on the radio, your special Friday night rituals. Let me know. I want to hear about your version of growing up and your version of what made Friday night so special. Because I guarantee across everybody, things might be different, but Friday night was always special. And that's what I got for you this time. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And if you want to help support what we're doing here a little bit more, you can join my Patreon. The link is in the description. You'll get special members only videos, physical media reviews, and so much more. And everything helps the channel. And I appreciate all of you out there. We do all kinds of stuff here, videos like this, movies, lists, pop culture. It all matters, and I love talking about it with you. But until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.